show. First on our list, as discussant, is a dedicated grassroots peace builder from the Philippines with nearly 30 years of experience in conflict transformation. Currently pursuing master's degree at Cotabato State University, she has worked extensively in Mindanao and Timor-Leste. Her past roles include Peace Building Training Coordinator for CRS Philippines and Director of the Peace Education Center at Notre Dame University on Cotabato City. She was one of the facilitators for the Education for Peace course of this year's MPI Annual Peace Building Training. Everyone, let's all welcome Maria Ida Akden Kendo. Okay, now we see Atadeng as our first guest. Do you have any idea who will be the second or third? Let's see. Next on our list is a biologist's third peace practitioner. After graduating with biology degree from University of Notre Dame, our next discussant went to the Philippines as a Peace Corps fisheries volunteer in Northern Samar. After falling in love with the Philippines and in the Philippines, and pursuing his master's in international agriculture and rural development at Cornell University, he returned to the Philippines as a Maryknoll Lake missioner, documenting human rights abuses and low-intensity conflict. And of course, fell in love with the Filipino. From 2014 to 2024, he served as MPI's Technical and Institutional Capacity Building Officer. And after leaving MPI in 2024, he continues to provide tech support and organizational development to anyone who will have him. Personally, one of, if not the most patient person I know. Ladies and gentlemen, please give it all for Fred Goddard. Okay, our next discussant is a seasoned, detail-oriented, I can really say that, and highly committed my mentor, manager, and administrator with 40 years of experience in international development work in areas of peace building, human rights advocacy, popular education, and community development in various countries of Asia. Her commitment to the Philippines brought her to Davao in 1984, where she worked as an international volunteer with non-government organizations. She was the director of MPI from 2009 until 2023. If you do the math, that is 14 years, ladies and gentlemen. Let's give it all for Christine Vertucci. And of course, last but not the least, everyone's bestie in MPI, our final discussant is a passionate advocate for peace and justice with over 15 years of practical experience. She is an alumna of MPI's annual training and a graduate mentor of the MPI Grassroots Peace Building Mentors Training Program. Her career has evolved from volunteer to acting managing director at Pailig Development Foundation Incorporated in Iligan. She is currently the director of Mindanao Peace Building Institute, our friend, Jumaini Moya. Okay, before I begin, let me say this, that this is so much of a big deal for me, to be honest, because most of the people who know me, that I don't really have like a fan like in K-pop or something, or so this is just like my Korean idols to me. You know what I mean? Like how much I celebrate the lives of these people who have contributed so much for Mindanao and in the Philippines. So we will just keep it very low and light as well. Just maybe celebrating as well your contributions and also your personal lives with MPI. So I'm just curious, maybe let's start with Atadeng. Um, we just want to know, how did you start your journey with MPI? And maybe just one more thing, like just maybe to fact check to all of us. I just heard from somewhere that you were if not the first one, but one of the first program officers of CRS at the time of maybe 2000 starting the MPI train. Is it true? And how was the experience?
Well, yeah, how did the MPI journey start? We all know that MPI started with 7 of us being sent to Eastern Mennonite University, supported by NCC and CAVON and CRS. And from there, the dream of putting up an MPI in Mindanao started. And it was really Myla Liguru who was pushing, working so hard for that. At the time when MPI started its first training, that was in 2000, I was working in East Timor. So I was actually like a program manager in East Timor for the peace building. And MPI was launched as a program of the peace building section of Catholic Relief Service. So Al and I were laughing because the first MPI training was held in the Corsilio House. Those of you in Davao would know the Corsilio House is run by sisters. So at 9 o'clock in the evening, lights off. And we were like, what are we going to do? And we want to spend the evenings out. No, they closed the gate. So you have to be in by 8:30. So we were kind of like dormitorianas, dorm people. So we said, well, this is a good start, but this is not a good venue. So we better look for one. But that was really also a good way of finding where we would like to be. It's a good lesson learned of finding where we wanted to start.
Wow, I mean, look, from 25 years, I think that's already like a lot of information of how MPI started, from closing the doors at 9 p.m. and now already in Morgrande. I'm very curious of what you're about to say with the changes later that you have observed. But before that, let's go with Fred. Fred, you've worked as technical capacity, digital security, whatever, because you have, to be honest, I've worked with MPI as an intern for many years, and he has several positions. And can you clarify for all of us what was those positions, and how did you start your journey with MPI as well?
My journey actually started with MPI before officially joining. Chris and I go way back into the early 1980s through Mariano, both being former Mariano missionaries. So when we returned in 2012 to the Philippines, Chris and I caught up again, and during the training in 2013, there were several participants who had technical difficulties, including computer virus, being blacked out, and so Chris called me to come out to Mayor Grande here. We were out in Mayor Grande, assisted some of the participants I had hacked into their computers to help them clean up and so forth. So that was my introduction to MPI and bringing my technical skills. So eventually, when I finished my work with the Managing Alternative Groups Incorporated in Mayjai here in Davao, Kristen invited me to work with MPI full-time, doing both the technical work and helping to bring the institution further in its development.
Wow, thank you so much, Fred. I told you already, that I've worked with MPI in different hats. But my first experience with Fred was when I was intern. I remember Rudy is in here, maybe not. It was my first day as intern in MPI, and she told me a very important thing, that Fred never gets mad. I was told that Fred never gets mad, and I was 19 or 18 years old at that time, and I was a little, Let's see. So it was just like on a mission to somehow make Fred annoyed at me. So I kept on calling him, Fred, can you help me with this after 2 minutes, Fred? Can you? And he never gets mad. And it was like, I gave up and said, and I was the one who ended up mad because I couldn't make him mad. So I can really see how much patience you have as a person, especially on the work that you do on technical aspects. Because working on technical aspects, my eyebrows gets raising up every 5 minutes. So that's really good of you. And Chris, 14 years. How did you start?
Well, with MPI, actually, I'll pick up where Dane left off. I started my journey with MPI through an invitation from Myla and the other Filipinos who wanted to establish MPI. And again, as Dane said, they were inspired or challenged by John Paul Lederach when they were at SPI doing training on peace building to continue the peace and reconciliation program that Catholic Relief Services had for Mindanao at that time. And as I recall, they wanted somebody connected to the Mennonites to join this effort to establish MPI. And at that time, I was the country representative for Mennonite Central Committee in the Philippines. And so they invited me to join this effort to establish MPI. And so another point that I'll share about the first training was the other thing I remember, the largest country delegation who attended was from Timor-Leste. And Dane was the one who was, bringing them along and also spending evenings doing deeper explanations because, again, the English of the delegation, of all the participants, wasn't also good, but they made great effort to really participate and share, and then Dane spent these evenings going over with them the concepts and the approaches because she spoke Tattoo by that time. So it's still in my head. I still see this group of Timorese who were coming into the Cristelia house for this training. It was really such a wonderful experience.
Thank you so much. Maybe I just want to ask one more thing just to deepen it. So how was your position for 14 years? How did you start on it as a director?
Well, okay, like I always felt that my job was to build an institution because again, there was a program. I mean, this was what started in 2000. And I see it was the first decade, the first 10 years, MPI, as we said, was housed with CRS that had the infrastructure in the Philippines to organize this training every year. Though, as we have said, it was owned by Mennonite Central Committee, CAFID, the Catholic Agency for Overseas Development, and CRS.
Thank you so much, Chris. And how about you, Ate Mai? How long have you been working so far as director?
How long?
Yeah.
2 years.
2 years. And of course, this is your first time working as director. Is it the first time you've been to MPI, right? So could you share with us your experiences speaking to them?
As a director or as a participant? Of course, I don't
Your life in China.
know. Okay. I will use the lens as a alumni and then became a director. John, I will use the sand in my shoes. John has this book, Sand in My Shoes, and the first time, just the first page, you explain about sand in my shoes. MPI is like a sand in my shoes. Because it was also my first time being a peace builder, working in peace. And I was sent here to be trained. And from then on, the learnings I had with MPI stuck on my shoes. And wherever I go, I would always find my way here at MPI for 4 years, keep coming back, and then became one of the experimental group of the grassroots mentoring, peace building mentoring program. Thank you, mentors. You did a lot of good things for us. And now I am back as a director. It is not my first time being a director. I was a director before in my former organization, Kaigi Development Foundation Incorporated, a hesitant one in fact. And I wasn't ready then, but then, like anyone who's been thrown into this water and then you learn to swim. So that was my experience before. And before joining for 2 years, I worked as a consultant. I love the life of a consultant because you own your time. But then there's this call. I just can't say no. I just can't say no, and it was the perfect time. The last minute, at the last day, I submitted my application. And it's been a very good decision, I would say, a very transformative one. This is my second time as being a director, but I am learning a lot. I have a great team. Thanks for guiding me, Chris. They are really a great team. Can you please stand? MPI team. Yeah. They're really great, and they have been. It's a collective effort. Everything is a collective effort. It's a teamwork. I cannot be here without them. So we work together. That's why MPI is MPI now, because we work together.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, that there's so much heart and power in what all of you has said, looking back from the beginning of the year until now. I remember when I was in third and having my moment with MPI, Fred and Chris. Was it third floor or second floor? Third floor of the office, being the early birds and now having their own time of their lives with families and doing whatever they want. And now we are seeing already transitions of not only of the team but also of the leadership. And speaking of the transition, we're very curious of your observations in terms of the changes that you have observed since MPI has started until now. Can you share some of those observations in terms of changes?
Wow, a lot of changes, of course, but a lot of changes, but also sticking to what the core of MPI really is. If I'd like to build on what Chris was saying, MPI has the first experience of MPI really gave me the path, like a small glimpse of the path where MPI was leading into. Because if you remember in 2000, East Timor just gained their independence from Indonesia. And as Chris was saying, I brought a lot of East Timorese with me. And there was also a huge number of Indonesians in the same, in our classes, right? And of course, you have the feelings are still hurting. So there was tension in the class, but the facilitators were very much, because we also update each other, so they're very much aware of what could happen. And so in one of the classes, tension really broke out. And so as Chris was saying, in the evenings, I would sit with the Timorese, and that evening they were all very sad. They wanted to go home. So they said, let's go home. This is not the place for us. So I asked what happened in their class. And so they explained to me there was tension between the Indonesians and the Timorese. So I said, what can help us? What did you learn in your class that can help us? And they said, well, maybe if there is someone who can facilitate a conversation between us, maybe that would help. And I said, when do you want the conversation to happen? And they kept on postponing. You know how we sometimes run away from conflict. So they kept on postponing, not tonight, tomorrow, oh, not tomorrow, there is another assignment, oh, on Saturday, oh, not on Saturday, we're going somewhere. So they kept on postponing the conversation. And finally, on the last day, remember that, Chris? On the last day, they were in the stage, and it was, you know what we did last night? You know, the testimony like this. So the Timorese took, I remember, you know, where's the Timorese girl? Mina. Yeah, Mau Montero. So he was on the microphone, and he stood there and he said, "I'd like to extend our apology to our Indonesian friends. We're very sorry for disrupting your learning process because of the tension that happened, and we'd like to apologize for us." Immediately, you saw the Indonesians coming up the stage and embracing him, and the Timorese coming up the stage, and they embraced each other. I was like, I didn't know this was going. I thought they would punch each other, no? You know, like really punch, but no, they embraced. And then I said, this is what MPI really is for. And from there on, we will see packets of reconciliation happen. John, you were telling about the Indian and the Pakistani women in our class. And while in their homes, bombs were being dropped everywhere in their countries. But they said, our countries are in war. But we will not be in war. We will start something. See, these things are happening at MPI. So from then until now, we are still a space for people to really connect as friends, as human beings. I wish people in Israel and Gaza would really come to MPI. Yeah, maybe, I don't know. But that's the thing that really remains. Changes, so much changes. Before we didn't have cell phones in the classroom. Now we have cell phones for translation and AI, no? So we have that, and we have this nice LCDs and what's this? PowerPoint. Before we had, what's that thing? The cellophane thing? Yeah, we had that, but now it's just click, click, click. Before we had to have boxes of, these transparencies, right? Not slides, just transparencies. Yeah, so that thing. But again, the facilitators have really, they have really kept the MPI spirit going. Allowing participants to talk, not owning the course, but really making participants part of the course. That has really also been through the years. So, salamat po.
Thank you. And before we go with Fred, I'm just really happy that you mentioned about the, some attitude and behavioral changes. When I was joining the Marketplace of Change of one of the courses, someone just told us that because of the training, she was able to expand her horizon beyond vengeance. Because before coming to MPI, all they know in terms of dealing with conflict is vengeance. To hurt as well because of the pain that they have already been enduring. But because of the training that they had, I think that was with Michael and other more facilitators, she was able to realize that there's more to that there's actually called nonviolent communication. And I think those kinds of lessons are worth documenting. And this is one of the purposes of this luncheon ceremony, fundraising luncheon, is to give hope and give resources to the vision of MPI, to documenting stories like what Ate Deng said, and of course next with Fred, who's about to share us as well your changes that you have observed.
Thank you. I would just say that I think the the 3 course, the 2-week course, the annual peace building training itself is actually something that's been consistent on a certain level. There's certainly changes in the facilitators or like the technology and courses and things that happen. But I'd like to just touch on a couple of the outside the training changes that I've seen that have been important to MPI. So when I joined in 2014, there was already the resource-based conflict and peace building training program, and Abel, who's here, is part of that. I'm not sure where Abel is right now, and some other people from the area worked on that. And one of the things that strikes me about that program is that it was a real kind of grassroots peace building work that we were involved in. It was actually switching to say we were funded by Bread for the World, and we had built a strong relationship with them. But then the indigenous people in the communities we're working with were shifting their needs from peace building to some economic development structuring. And we said, this isn't really our area, that's not our strength. And Bread for the World was like, you mean you're giving out this funding from Bread for the World? And Chris and all of us on the team discussed it and said, it's important, the funding is great, but it's not. So we worked actually to turn over the program to another NGO in the area that's really what's their responsibility. So I think that's a change that MPI did, which I think is really important. And then other programs with the grassroots peace building mentors training programs that developed that. And then we had actually the one I was involved with social media and conflict in Mindanao, having peace builder alumni involved in studying that and doing participatory research. So I think these small projects outside the training inform our work and also keep us with the times. They're going from something with the indigenous people all the way over to technology and social media. Just shows how MPI looks to and adjusts over time.
Yeah, and just want to add one more thing for sure, Chris. Speaking of how much topics have been covered by MPI, I think at some point MPI has also offered a course called Conflict Sensitive Economic Governance, and that was facilitated by a group of International Alert Philippines staff, and one of them is here, Rachel Kapili, who's also one of the facilitators for next week, right, for climate justice. So something to look forward as well for next week's training course. And I agree with you on the innovation that comes with it. And with you, Chris, what changes have you observed?
The thing is, I will actually follow through with what Fred was saying. Another change was MPI emphasizing customized trainings. That's where requests come from outside organizations for MPI to organize training with their specifics. And what I just want to note to you, the first major one that MPI did was with Mennonite Central Committee Indonesia a few years ago, whereby MPI helped organize a training in Indonesia. It was in Bali for academics and lecturers that were partners of MCC Indonesia on the fundamentals of peace building and trauma healing. And it was facilitated by MPI alumni. Because in Indonesia, there's the Indonesian Peace Building Institute that was initiated during this 25-year period by the alumni from Indonesia. So that to me was a real example of where MPI could go or should continue to go, whereby trainings are held in another place, in another country, and it's facilitated by the alumni. So by those who came here, who were trained by MPI, they are now going back to their own communities and doing the trainings in their own language. Sort of guided by MPI, by our methodologies, by our values, by our principles as to how you train and how you interact with your participants. but really is contextualized in that particular country. And I really saw that as a milestone, and I think that is a change, well, a further development. And then to the particulars, I'll make two comments about general changes. I think, again, in terms of the participants, I would say in the first 10 years, the first decade, the majority of participants came from the Philippines. Actually, they came from Mindanao. But in the next 10 years, in the second decade, we were able to bring in more internationals. And again, with MPI's focus, we say MPI is an organization with a focus for Asia Pacific, located here in the Philippines, where, conflict has been in Mindanao, ongoing for so many years. And it was really a laboratory, a place where other peace builders could learn what Filipino peace builders had done. And so I think that was one change, and that change was also represented in the pool of facilitators. MPI relies on the generosity and the goodness of our facilitators who come to facilitate and who really don't receive the rates that they could receive internationally. So they are really, truly making a contribution. And again, in the first 10 years, many of our facilitators were from the Philippines. But in the next decade, there was an attempt to bring in other voices from Asia Pacific, and we did. There were from facilitators coming from other Asian countries. And so I would say again, those are two sort of major changes in the makeup of how we have run our trainings.
But we have been taught that changes depends on context. During the time of in early 2000s, right? 2000, no? Early 2000 that MPI was formed. So it's a different context at the time. And Fred talked about technology and all, and it's a different context at this time. What our forerunners have established, their wisdom has been retained. The values of MPI, the core values that it stands for, it maintains. But also, considering the context that we have now, we made some minor changes, modifying, considering what is happening around us at the same time, but what is happening within us. We know for a fact that how global issues shift, global funding shift. So we're looking at the rich resources that we have in our country and the rich resources that we have in Asia Pacific. And we are all here a resource. And these changes is not really the change that totally changing everything. It's again about the context that we have now while maintaining the very core values of MPI and the very vision that it has, which is maintaining the safe space for all peace practitioners, Asia Pacific and beyond. So it's like metamorphosis. Every generation of MPI undergoes metamorphosis, and we all wanted to maintain the beauty that it has. So whatever changes that we have now, it's also to protect the legacy of our forerunners.
Thank you so much. Give them a round of applause, please. It's a lot to share, and I don't know how to even continue with such emotions that I've been having. I told you already, that this is too personal for me, and it's a lot that you have shared for your generosity, and I'm really thankful about that. And 25 years has never been easy for MPI. We had COVID. We had, like what you said, the global shifts of defunding, of some just horrors in the political arena. But MPI is still here. What do you think was the secret for the longevity? And what do you think? Yeah, what's the secret for that? We want to know.
I think the first, what holds MPI together is the committed group of people who continue to dream for a better world. I don't think these guests, funders who are here would continue to support MPI if they do not believe in a better world. They do not believe in building the capacity of people to be agents of positive change in their context. So I think this group of people who believe and commit not only themselves but their resources to something that is worth standing up for, and that's like MPI. I think that's one of the secrets of why we've reached 25 years. And we hope we're going to reach
Yes.
another 25 years.
Amen. Amen to that. But for you at sorry, did you ever imagine MPI reaching 25th anniversary? You were there since the beginning of time of MPI.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah, I even brought my granddaughter here because I believe in MPI, right?
Yes.
It's like I believe in that. So I know that MPI is gonna be, I saw somebody bringing his young daughter. Because you believe in MPI, right? Like we're gonna do another 25 years in 25 years. So yeah, I do believe.
Thank you, Antoinette. And how about you, Fred? What's the secret? And did you ever imagine MPI on 25th year?
Well, to pick up on what they said, that what you were saying reminds me of Margaret Mead's famous quote of never doubt that a small group of committed people can change the world. And the other ones you ever have. So I think that's part of it. But even that small group of committed people that at times have conflicts. So I think one of the things that has sustained MPI is also its ability to put into practice what it's trying to teach. And in our office, at times we had our conflicts, but we took that time we would sit together and we would use what we learned. We would use nonviolent communication. We would use conflict resolution practices, even in our office, to deal with those conflicts that we're having. So it's not something we can just teach others. We have to also live that. And I think that's also, as others were sharing, what we expect even in the classroom, among ourselves, in our work, is we live out personally what we're learning as an institute. So that's what sustains us, because if we break down as an institute, then why bother to teach conflict, transformation, and peace building?
For the secret, it's kept MPI going. I think one is just our reliance on relationships, on building strong interpersonal relationships with each other. And then that means there's trust and there's respect. And then on that, you can ask anything of another if you have this strong relationship. And then I say a second secret, I think, is MPI's consistency in following its vision, mission, and goals, and staying on that track, and not leaving it to find, especially to find funding, because there's so many ways you can kind of waver and go this way and that way, because the current call doesn't fully match what you are about. And I feel that MPI has consistently stayed on the path, its own path. And I feel that's really, really important. And the other thing, did I imagine MPI would be here 25 years later? I would say probably not. It was never within my framework when we sat around the table talking about what we wanted to offer in MPI in 2000. We just wanted to start it, and we wanted to see what would happen. We didn't know where it was going to lead us. And I can remember feeling and thinking that this is an experiment. And actually that is what definitely motivated me to sit in 2 of the classes in 2000, because I wanted to see what we had created, and if it was going the way we thought and hoped it would. And so that's where I was in 2000, and I must say I didn't think beyond that, just to the next year that we could do this again. Thank you.
And look at me on the 25th anniversary, and I got at the next said, 25 years more, yeah? How about you, Mike?
As an alumna, I will look at it as an alumna. Probably one of you sitting down there. I will always believe that MPI will reach 25 years. Not because we have great facilitators, very committed, even, just giving their heart out for everything. And we have great team, very also committed to do this thing. But as long as there is heart for peace, and there is hope for peace, MPI will continue. I never doubted it that MPI will not reach 25 years. Because only with MPI that I felt, that I'm feeling the solidarity that each one emulate, demonstrate. And even until now, my batchmate in 2008, we're still connected, Chris. So that is what MPI made me feel. And just one call that really immediately step up. We have 3,000 alumni, and then once you call them, as long as they're available, they really step up. So as long as people believe in peace, as long as there is heart and there is hope, MPI continues.
Thank you so much, Ate Mai. And I think that's also a testament now, not only for the 4 of us, but also for the resources that we have, the participants, the staff, the volunteers who have been joining MPI for the last 25 years. And give yourself also a round of applause, because you deserve this kind of recognition as well. And I hope that you also feel valued in MPI as well. You ended your statement with a term called heart, no? And it's oftentimes used in different occasions, in romantic, platonic relationship. But can I just simply invite you for the last question to maybe close your eyes? This is quite a different talk show. It's involving a little reflective approach. I just wanted to ask one question, coming from your experiences as well. I want you to think this question, and when you're ready, just open your eyes. The question is, what are your hopes or wishes for MPI in the next 5 to 10 years? I'll give you a moment of silence, and when you're ready, you can open your eyes. Okay, ready? I thought they were already sleeping. Good that you're taking your time. I think it's also good to start with Ate Mai from this point. What's your hope or wish?
Actually, it's already in the talks among the team. But I like to see MPI not only doing MPI here in Davao, but in different parts of Mindanao and do field-based course, not only in Mindanao, but in different contexts in the Philippines that we haven't been in. And also expanding it to our sister training institute. We have NARPI, we have NAHIBT, and Magkabi in Transcendosania. What's the other one? One in Indonesia. So we want to explore it more. And we also have these talks already going to Cambodia. So seeing these things happening and also capturing what we have, our very own rich resources in the Philippines. Expanding.
Okay, to follow by, I would say first, to continue outreach to our friends and colleagues in Asia Pacific so that we increase the number of international participants who come. And then for our facilitator pool to really, again, do outreach to our alumni and from also the region, from Asia Pacific, and then basically to begin to create the next liners, the next generation of facilitators, and with hopefully from our partners in Asia Pacific. And then also to echo what Mai said, this idea for collaboration, to emphasize collaboration with our partners and our alumni in the region to do trainings in those places, in their languages. Like as I was describing what happened in Indonesia and now what seems to might happen in Cambodia, and it can take all kinds of shapes and forms, but it's really tapping the resources of MPI in those countries and working, contextualizing everything that they learn here, and then again, creating more peace builders. And then my final wish is take risks. Do not be afraid to be bold, to be innovative, and to stand up for your values and your principles. To stand firm on your principles and your values in the face of great adversity. And that could be government surveillance, government monitoring. You know how with AI and all of the technological developments that really aid these kinds of things to prevent people from working for justice and peace. So that's what I say. Don't be afraid, and don't be afraid to speak truth to power.
For me, I think this is a critical time, especially speaking as embarrassingly an American, to see what's happening in our country, but also the effect it's having in the world, although sometimes there's good backlash, but because like Canada and Australia seem to be going in the right direction, or we're going in the wrong direction. But for me, though, what strikes me is the need for coalition building. And we talked about like strengthening our relationships with NARPI and other sister institutes, but we need to also look beyond. We need to build coalitions with groups working for the environment, for human rights, and so forth. And I think along with that then is MPI's ability to reach out and start training people from these kinds of organizations, that we can all be peace builders. So how do we connect then with groups that are working in the environment, groups that are working for women, groups that are working in general for justice and say, training we're doing on peace building is very appropriate to what we're doing. Some of that we're doing, but I think we need to strengthen that and really strengthen the coalition building to build a stronger movement for a much more just and peaceful world.
They say dreaming is free. So you can dream big. So I dream of MPI having its own physical center. I can dream big, right? So I dream of MPI in a wide open space with a physical center with trees, flowers, garden, growing our own vegetable organically. So we don't have to do all this stuff. I dream of it. We talk of peace among people, but we don't talk often of peace with nature. So I dream of that. And I dream of MPI not only like our 1 year event of gathering of people, but maybe let's make it 2, 3, 4 times a year, right? And I support all their dreams, having peace institutes, sister institutes all over where our alumni are. And they can be the resource persons. Maybe they can come to MPI once a year for a skills building of facilitators. And then bring them back. Then come again, learn the lessons, then bring them back. Isn't that a good dream? Yeah, you should support me. But if I can dream big, I really also have to work for that. So we have to all help in our own small way to make that dream a reality.
Thank you so much, Ate, and of course, Fred, Chris, and Ate Mai for sharing your personal experiences and stories with us. I also agree with everything that you said. For me, I couldn't just simply imagine a day without seeing NBI. Okay, no more. Like this kind of gathering together with different just having seen each other, learning together. Like what they said, it's not the perfect platform for everyone, but the fact that we're here learning together, having this connection, I think it's just something that we can bring in for the rest of our lives, no? And thank you so much again. So maybe we also wanted to extend to our participants, to our friends, if you have questions or anything to say.
I'll be the opening batsman like Indian cricket. Okay, first question is, how do the three of you stay so young? The next is a comment. 25 years in the life of an institution is extremely significant. And that means it is in its prime youth, where the institution needs to sustain itself. And here you have created close to 3,000, 4,000 peace builders all over the world, and they have created further peace builders. Close to, let's say, we have about 100,000 peace builders running around who are replicas or people who have been created by LPI. Now, in the sustenance plan, my request, also combined with question, is how are we going to dream the dream and share the dream and make other people's dream that dream? So that's what I think we should do. Inspired by MPI is what we started in 2019 a journey. And Florina and I thought we should have something like that in India. And we think it is possible. And in our lifetime, we've established this. Because you taught us how to do it. Now it's time that you blind the roots. It's deep IY. And therefore what we think is, we need to dream this dream and share this dream and make others dream this dream. And we are here with you in this journey. Thank you.
Thank you, Xavier. One more we'll just collect and then we'll just give him.
Before that, the answer to his first question, how do the three of you stay so young?
Okay, so we have how do you stay so young, and also about the dream question, yeah? One more, or that's it?
Thank you for sharing. I really appreciate it because I'm a newbie here. Although I've been staying here in Davao City, I never knew the existence of MPI. And it was already introduced to me by another friend from Britain, and she was involved not with MPI, she was involved with Hope Institute of Burma, and she attended the Hope, she attended some peace conference in Nepal, and I badly wanted to join her, and she said that, no, this one is something that has to be arranged, and there's a protocol, okay? She said, sweet. And she was the one who told me that, hey, there's one in your hometown. So that was how I came here. I'm here, all right? Yeah. So as a follow-up to his question and also to your dreams, I was just wondering, because I have a very strong pioneering spirit. Yeah, okay? So I was just thinking, yes, we want to, you seem to have a dream that you want to plant mosques, right? You have a lot of alumni, yeah. So if I have to become your alumni, if I have this desire to start something, and when for me, if I have a desire to start something, I will sit down and work out all the details. So to what extent is MPI prepared to stand behind me or give me support, not in terms of finances, but any kind of support that I need? To what extent are you prepared to be with me?
Thank you so much. So I will just maybe summarize the questions first. A question of how do you stay so young, and maybe just give advice, especially for me maybe. Second, I think these are two connected. Like how do you the dream question, no? But also and a follow-up question about the action. What can MBI do to help people like us having this dream to make this a reality? Maybe who wants to start? Kasi ako, kinang mic. Ate mic.
I'm still young. Young looking only. I already have white hairs here. So I will turn in 49 this year, so not so young anymore. We're actually having this dream. That's why we have merch. Because we're trying to realize the dream little by little, you know. I know it's a very ambitious dream to have a training center because you have to consider the land and the building and all that. But we're dreamers. We're visionaries. We're trying to. That's why we have theory and practice. That's the dream, theory, and practice is producing this merch. Really doing that. We have this dream actually, the training center. It was designed by Fred. So he contributed to that design, and every time I look at it, it actually fuels us. Now, how can we help? Right now, what we did in the last time, especially during Chris' time, is she can talk more about this, which we're also doing also, is provide consultancy. We can talk about it, what you wanted, and example, if you need facilitators, we can tap the facilitators wherever you are, or the alumni who can help you, especially if you want training. We can tap our facilitators that are in your area. We can also give you consultancy, curriculum design, training design. We can also help you with that. So those are the concrete things that we can help you with. So depending on the need that you have. And within what we can give for you, because we cannot give what we don't have. So basically, we can offer you course design, facilitators. We can also decide the entire package of a training, if you like. So depends. And Chris also can expound more on what we have done before.
Okay. I think to continue on your point about providing what kind of assistance, I would just add that it also could be through email communications, through questions or for research. We have done that when I was director. Actually, again, it was Fred did a lot of that work. And he would then, if somebody asked for different kinds of resources, but we do actually have resources on the website. I don't know if you have fully investigated MPI's website, but there is one where, in terms of resources, both links to online resources, book listings, and well, Fred can actually say more about that because he was the one who put it together. But I mean, that kind of thing, through at least email or telephone calls or having meetings. It's not like great funding or anything of that sort, but it's at least contacts and information, support, motivation. So to go to the question about what keeps me young, I think it's interacting with and being with young people. This gives me energy and it revitalizes me. And I'm always inspired by the people I have met at all the trainings and so many other places with their commitment and their vitality. And then the third thing about the dream, well, in relation to the training center, I'm going to be at Contra Vida right now. And I'm going to present another perspective on this. I know this is something we talked about when I came in 2009 as director, this vision for a training center run by MPI. But I must say, as my years went on, I began seeing another way of looking at it, looking at collaboration. And then working with maybe even a place like Rio Grande, for instance. We have been here for more than 10 years. There's been more than 10 years of trainings at this place. I mean, would there be any way that MPI could interact with Rio Grande? And because, again, if we're talking about conserving resources, recycling and reusing, why should MPI go and create and build a center somewhere? And then you have the management and you have all of those responsibilities that will take away from the time to train and interact with people. So I was thinking, are there other ways, thinking new ways? Or again, collaborating with somebody else that has the facility. Again, MPI can stay small with a dynamic staff that coordinates, that knows where resources are, and that can tap their alumni or wonderful facilitators, etc. That kind of a thing. So you're small, but you're dynamic. It doesn't take much money to keep it small, but you can have great impact and great coordination and great interactions. And it's reciprocal, and then there's co-responsibility.
Thanks, Chris. And how about you, Fred?
I would also say what keeps me young are young, interacting with young people, which I think MPI has also been good at doing, especially in the volunteers, getting young peace builders or young people to volunteer. They've just been a real inspiration needing a sense of humor to stay in as well. In terms of Chris, you gotta come back to the present. You're old school of email, and I think for that element, I think MPI needs to look at, and then along with alumni, how do we connect in this digital age? I'm not sure it's TikTok, I hope not, but there may be ways, but to explore that. What are ways in this global, how do we transform technology to be a tool for peace building? So to use some, especially as new AI is emerging and so forth. There are people out there working, especially people in the digital rights movement, that we can connect with and see how do we make that a tool to stay connected. And then I also finally I like the idea of the center. I understand Chris's point, but I think creating a creative space. I think some of these places that we try to use, and yeah, we can collaborate, but to hold out that vision of a creative space that we make available to others. So if there is collaboration, it can still be with a new space that maybe MPI could lead into creating a space where it's more appropriate to what we want with the garden. I love the organic garden idea, and so things like that. And then bringing in other institutions, other NGOs that would want to use that space. Maybe it's working with people who know how to build that kind of space, and MPI maintains its service of peace building and training, and then work with someone who can build that space.
The beauty of MPI is we might have different views, but we still are friends. I hold on to my dream. How do I speak up? Wait, you're destroying my momentum. I stay young because I learn how to laugh at myself. I don't take myself seriously. So that's one secret, I think, of staying young. And also I love to interact with my grandkids. So that's one way of staying young. So I listen to their stories and really try to put myself into their shoes and share their excitement over some of the terms that I do not understand. But so that I think is one way of staying young, right? And back to my dream, I'm not giving up on it, don't sidetrack me. I'm not giving up on that dream. I still dream of a center that's open space and really very organic in terms of the food that we put on the table, and also like creating jobs for people. I remember, I might get into trouble here, but I remember one person telling me before a training, requesting for a training. The person said, "We know how to do justice, but we do not know how to build peace." And I got struck with that, because for so many decades we've been doing justice. But we are just starting to do the peace building side. And I think having the space, that ambience, that especially dedicated for people to really learn how to build peace. And we know that building peace is based on justice, on compassion, on equality, and those values. But having that space where we can really say, this is where we're learning it, I think that for me is. And how do I support it? Where's Gina or Nancy? How do I support it? I'm their number one customer. When I come here, they say, how many t-shirts, how many keychains, how many neighbor type notebooks. So I started with maybe 10, maybe like this. Oh yeah, just listen, she's going to increase it later. So I'm their number one customer. I support it little, but still I do my share. Thank you.
Thank you, Go. And also thank you for our friends who asked questions. Okay, then read.
Okay. Yes, good afternoon. I'm Al Fortes. So perhaps part of the dream is maybe MPI could also create an endowment fund, utilizing the resources of the alumni and also the resources of the facilitators. If you say we have 3,000 alumni, since its inception, if each alumna could give even $1 a year, $1, 54 pesos a year, that would be enough to maybe also support 1 or 2 scholars. Those who are extremely interested and really are into peace building, community building, but they just couldn't afford. So, I think again, out of gratitude, I would like to believe NPI alumni are more than willing to give more than $1 as a gesture of gratitude, for what MPI may have done to them, how MPI may have impacted and enriched their work, not just work, but also personal lives and also interpersonal relationships and interconnectedness.
Thank you, sir. I think there's a lot of ideas that we have been gathering so far now, but surely the talk show is not the end of it. Later we have a lot of platform to exchange through networking, but definitely no taken about the endowment fund, which is, I think, for me, a really interesting idea. So again, thank you so much for sharing your stories with us. Again, let me introduce Mighty Moya, Christine Bertucci, Fred Robert, and Maria Tina. At the din po. Salamat po.